Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I've read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is a musician, creative, and of course, an author too, and the author of the book C6. The C7. No other than Mr. Andrew Cloninger. Welcome, Mr. Andrew. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. Yes. My name is Andrew Cloninger. I was born in Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is in the United States, and I moved to upstate New York when I was a kid. And yeah, I've been writing since I was a little kid, like in middle school, which is like in the United States, it's like grade 7, grade 8, like that. I had a really great English teacher that would really encourage me to write, and so for the longest time, I wrote a lot of poems and things for songwriting for music and to add with music. And then as I got older, I started to kind of separate the two. And so yeah, so I've been writing since I was a little kid, and also playing music since I was a little kid. So I grew up in a musical family. My grandmother was a church pianist, and yeah, so we would I would she would take me to like old folks homes and stuff like that when I was little. And so I had to sing all the old church hymns and that kind of thing. And then as I got older, and I wanted to express myself, I would write my own stuff and that kind of thing. And so um yeah, so I was able to hone my craft over the years. And I went to college and took my different classes and stuff to learn how to write better and that kind of thing. And then yeah, in like 2018, I had a pretty bad accident, that I injured my neck vertebrae in my C6 section 7 section of my neck. And um and and it, it gave me some nerve damage, which was really hard to my left hand went numb, and I wasn't able to play music because I'm a guitarist, so I needed my left hand to be able to form the chords on the guitar. And so yeah, so it took a lot of rehab and frustration and all that stuff. And so I figured the best way to express that, since I wasn't able to use music as an outlet, I was like, well, I can write still because I'm right-handed, not left-handed. So I was able to still write. And so I really wanted to write something that was very, very short and to the point, but also um, kind of a narrative of all the different feelings I was having, as well as like the triumphs and the tragedies and the things that were happening in my daily life. So I kind of settled upon haiku because there was a in college there was this great book called Song of Napalm by Bruce Weigel, and he was talking about his military experience that was very traumatic. And I was like, well, I obviously I didn't fight in a war or anything like that, but at least I can express myself in these short sentences to be able to get all the emotion out that I needed to release. And so yeah, I wrote this book. And it's like, it's interesting because haiku is, it's a very, very specific form, Japanese. And so it's interesting how English and Japanese don't really mix very well, because one's a symbol, it's symbol language, and the other one is is a different form. And so so I kind of played with the form a little bit, because in English it's 575. And so I did it the opposite way. I went 757, which is with the with the form. And so, it was very, healing process. It was a very, uh, it gave me a lot of peace, but also I was able to tell a story. And so it's kind of this interesting, yeah, it's all poems, but it's all narrative as well. Some of it's like not exactly in chronological form, but it has each section, and every part has a is very dear. Sometimes when I read some of it, it actually brings me back right back to where I was when I was writing it, and what kind of situation I was in, and dealing with different situations, like you know uh you know dealing with coming to terms with becoming a disabled person. I've always been very able-bodied, and I played sports when I was in high school, and so it was very challenging to my identity as a person, as a man, to not be able to do all the things that I used to be able to do. And so that was a very difficult time, to realize that things are going to be a little bit different, and luckily I have a great family, and I also have a faith that I can lean on. And so those things have really helped me get through this time in my life. And I'm very fortunate, and good health care, and some professionals that have really helped me get back to playing music. And I've made some progress that way, which is really great, and it's very helpful. So that was a big deal in my life. But yeah, but I continue to write. I've since I released this book in 2023, and so I've actually completed a it's not necessarily a follow up, but it's kind of like, it was almost like, I got hurt and going through rehab and all this stuff, and then COVID hit. And then it was like going through all that, rigmarole was not exactly the most fun in the world either. But it gave me time to write, and it gave me time to reflect. And especially in America right now, there's a lot of turmoil, and so we're kind of dealing with all that. So it's like trying to understand where you are in the world is kind of what the follow up is about. And so that's at the publisher right now. We'll see what happens with that, but it's not quite out yet. But so there's some interesting, with this book. It's about, okay, this happened. Okay, how does it affect me? How do I move on from it? And also, how can I help someone else in that predicament? Because we all face challenges, and so I really wanted to write something that, to say, hey, we're all in this thing together. This is, we might have different experiences, or different ways of tragedy, or different ways of dealing with things. But I just wanted to write something that we're not alone, and as a community of, world community, but also as a, you know you know as a creative person, this is my way to contribute. This is the way that I can maybe be a little bit helpful, but also be able to help other people with whatever they're dealing with. And so that was part of the motivation for writing it. And also it's interesting about, I see the cover here, and it was very interesting because um when we created the my wife, actually, she created the white part, which is actually kind of it's actually a skull in the vertebrae. And I drew all the little building block, all the kind of squiggly, building block type things, and then we put a schematic over the top of it to kind of symbolize that, you know we're not fully, we're not, you know things can be put back together. There's a plan, and so that was kind of the impetus of the cover as well. Is like, you know it might not be what it was, but it might be fixed in a different way, and that we can, we can move on and possibly heal from all that stuff. So it's still an ongoing situation. I still have to pace myself and know my limits and that kind of thing, but it's very manageable, and that's the thing that I'm trying to do, day to day, is try to manage pain, and also try to be a productive member of society as well. So
Well, Mr. Andrew Cloninger, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And hoping for more and more books like this to come. Why
yeah.
did you choose this title of your book, and what does specific label mean to you personally?
So C6, C7, that's actually those are vertebrae in my neck, and those were the ones that were affected by my injury. I had a bulging disc in that area, and so they actually had to perform surgery to get it back, um, to get the vertebrae back to where it needed to be, so that I could be functional, and because there was like when I was actually helping my uncle at his camp chop wood, and that's when it happened, and so in the book I start right at that moment, how I felt, how it happened, that kind of thing, and we kind of go right through all the really nasty pain that I because I was actually in a different state than New York, and so I had to get back from that state to New York, and I was in, it was like 6 hours away, or no, it was like 14 hours away, and so it was like getting me back home so that I could even see a doctor was quite the trip, and so luckily there was a doctor in town that I was able to go see just before I went. So they kind of patched me up a little bit to mitigate some of the symptoms, the pain symptoms and stuff. So I was able to get back home, and then I was able to see my doctor, and then we made plans from I had to do X-rays and stuff like that. But there was a lot of like lifestyle things that I had to change, like diet and stuff to mitigate pain, and change some things, and so yeah, it was quite the life altering uh type thing, and and it also challenged me to be okay, you thought of yourself as one thing, and now you have to kind of change your identity to something else, because the old identity doesn't even work anymore. Like I couldn't even be that person if I wanted to be, so it was like, it really challenged me to become, because I've always been a creative person, but I kind of put some of that aside for my family, to work and that kind of thing. And so now it's like, now that I have the time to devote to the creative aspect, I have to go full in and treat it like a full-time job, and take that same energy that I did, with the full-time job, and actually put it into my creativity. And that's been a kind of an interesting and scary, in some ways it's kind of scary, because you're like, oh, what's going to happen, but it really transformed the way I view the world, and it also how I relate to the community of people around me, and how it all kind of it came together after several years of like, first of all, they had to put me back together, so that took a couple of years just to get me back into a functional place. But once I was in a functional place, I was like, okay, what can I do now? That I've always been a forward thinker. I don't try to dwell too much on the past, but I try to understand the past so that I can be a better person in the future, and that's kind of what I was really focused on.
And for those who don't know, what are the specific physical implications of a C6-67 injury? What movement and sensation are typically affected?
So in my particular case, I mean, it's all different. You know, things happen to different people in different ways, but the way it happened to me was I the disc came so far out that it actually pinched my nerve, that affects my left side of my body, and so it caused a lot of nerve damage and and ongoing, I get ongoing shooting pains that go down my arm, and my hands go numb, and also we found out later that there was some like a degeneration in my spinal cord as well, like lower in my lower back, and so that causes a lot of issues as well. You know, I have a hard time sitting and like I have to constantly go up and down, like sitting and standing, and I get fatigued a lot more now than I used to. I used to be able to, do all different kinds of things as for as long as I wanted to, and nowadays I have to rest more and if I'm doing an activity like walking, simple activity like walking, I have to plan, okay, you walk for like a mile, I have to rest for 2 hours, afterward to recoup from it. So I mean, everyone's different, but for me it was, it's I have constant pain, and because of the nerve, I think it's because of the nerve damage, um, more than it is actually, because they were able to put me back to get they were able to do surgery to get the disc back in place, which they didn't have to fuse it, which was a really big positive thing. So that but I am restricted movement wise, like left to right is a little bit tricky, and right to left, either way, my range of motion is compromised, as well as I'm under lifting weight restrictions and that kind of thing. You know, so where I live, I have a fairly decent sized yard, and so I'm not allowed to mow the lawn anymore. So I mean, it's kind of a um, it's one of those things where I used to do all the yard work and all that kind of stuff, and now I'm not allowed. I can't use my chainsaw anymore, and that kind of thing. So it's kind of a a tricky situation. I have to teach my son without even I have to teach my son how to do something that I can't even show him how to do. So it's kind of a tricky, uh, it's a tricky position to be in. But I have to I have to use more patience, and I have to be a better person, and slow down, and not dwell on what I could do, but what can I do? That's kind of, or what I can't do, that kind of thing. So, it's been a challenge. But like I said, I have some really great doctors around me, and my family's been really great about helping me and stuff like that. So I'm in a good place because I have good people around me, and that's really what it comes down to, for sure.
Mr. Andrew, as a musician, author, and creative, what are your short term and long term goals?
Well, my short term goals right now, I'm actually in music mode right now. So release my band Ren Cove is releasing our our first full length record. We've released a EP, but this is our first full length. Um, and it's a 11 songs of instrumental music, that it's kind of like the soundtrack to the book, is really kind of what it is. And so that was kind of the thing in my mind when we were creating it, was that it would be kind of a companion piece, so you can listen to it while you read the book. That's kind of what I was thinking about. So that was kind of that part of it, but also long term, I want to stay as healthy as I can and be able to create as long as I can. And, and whether that's writing or music, or whatever it is that I can do, I'm going to try to do it for as long as I can, and try to, try to bring some positivity. I think that's one thing, these days it seems like there's a lot of missing, community based things, positivity. It seems like there's a lot of, I'm better than you kind of stuff, and I think we're missing the point. We're all in it together. That's kind of how I view things. And so, yeah, I think it's to continue to be as to contribute in the creative vein as long as I can, at the and doing the best I can doing it. So that's kind of what I'm looking at.
Well, good luck to your goals, Mr. Andrew, and looking forward for more success. Before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and mental health 101 Love Letters in its third season, and Movie 101 Review, Music 101 in third season, and Music and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. So, Mr. Andrew, can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, your music, or any projects that you're doing right now?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. You can check out you can check out C6 C7 on Amazon or Atmosphere Press, atmospherepress.com. Check that out. And yeah, and we have in my band, Ren Cove. You can check out all the stuff that we're doing at www.rencovemusic.com. You can check everything out there, and we got dates if you're in the greater New York State area, you can come check us out. And or just look out for all the different streaming, Spotify, all that stuff. We're releasing some stuff, and we're also the band is there. We also have some music up on Spotify and Pandora and iTunes and all that stuff. So you guys can check everything out.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Andrew Cloninger, because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering music to come, more and more empowering books to come. So, Mr. Andrew, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great. Thank you so much, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.